Okay, so this morning I had very good experience, but I realized I asked for this experience a long time ago, several months ago, and then Joel finally giving it to me. But it was, it seemed like it was hacked up. It seemed like it was 5 different experiences, and I didn't get up, and break the sleep cycle or anything. So I'm just gonna run it into one experience. But yeah, it's really weird because even yesterday I did have like 5 to 7 different, like bam, 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 like different dreams. It was so weird, and they all were kind of short. I remember a couple of them, but I didn't write them down. But this morning, this one was really fun though. So several months ago, I was asking Joel to give me experience, like flying around on a hand glider. Somebody told me it was called hang glider, but I was like, no, it's not. It's called hand gliding. To me, it's hand gliding, not hang gliding. But anyway, in the experience, like Joel was trying to tell me that what I was doing was hand gliding. So, so if I actually had the glider on me, then it would be hang gliding or whatever. But so that was kind of funny. But I started off way up high in the air, like 5,000 square feet. I mean, 5,000 feet, like way up in the air, and I couldn't believe I was that high. I was like, wow. I just couldn't believe I was that high because I didn't think I'd be able to like fly that high. And I knew I never could get my drone that high, I was thinking in the experience like, wow, well, no cheap drone is going to go that high, but that's my thoughts and stuff I had in the scenario. So I started off just like way up, flying around way up high, about 3,000 to 5,000 feet. And I was just like, I couldn't believe I was just flying on my own, because Joel was trying to tell me that I was hand gliding and not hang gliding. So I was like flying around. It was such a blast, like back and forth. And that was a lot of fun. And I looked down and I saw this apartment complex, and I saw like my car sitting there. And I couldn't believe how little it was, because I was so high that when I looked down and looked at my car, it looked only about, like 4 inches like long. And but it was a blast, and two, it was cloudy. And this dimension, well, a lot of those dimensions are cloudy, but it was like kind of darkish, like almost dusk or something. And it was cloudy, but I didn't see any clouds, but it was dark, like cloudiness. And I was just flying around, and I just was like flying around with my hands and like going high and then kind of going low and then just going back and forth, and I just couldn't believe I was able to fly without, the glider. And but it was such a blast. And I knew what I was doing was hand gliding. And so finally, and like I say, it just seemed like this was like broken up to like bam, 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 like 5 different scenes or something, like. But I'm just running it all into one. Okay, so I started flying lower and lower and lower, and I was by myself this time. I was by myself, just flying around by myself. And that's how it started. I was in the air flying. And like I said, I just couldn't believe how high I was. And then, so I started flying lower and lower and lower and lower. And then I just zoomed to the left. I started flying to the left, and over to my right was the apartment complex. And there were about, I don't know, like maybe 5 or 6. It was just one level, one little small building, like 5 different 5 different doors, like 5 apartments. And so I cocked my head over to the right, because that's where, my car was way over to the right. like when I was way up high, my car was parked way over to the right, and then like I say, as I fly lower and I was flying to the left near like near the apartment complex, I looked over to my right, and that's where the apartment complex was. And that third apartment, I knew that Michael Myers lived there. Well, this is kind of funny because yesterday I was talking about the Halloweens, and I was listening to that Halloween music, on YouTube or whatever, and so that's where Joel gets the idea. But there was a couple cats that I wanted to kind of go check up on, that I knew that lived there, like in front of the complex. And when I looked down, I did see the two cats and everything. And this time I was only like as I flew lower and lower near the apartment complex. Or I mean, it was just one building. It was one building. I was probably just about I don't know, like maybe 50 or 60 feet in the air as I was flying by. And when I looked over to the right, that's when I, like that 1, 2, 3, there was like 5 apartments in that little building, just one building. And it was like the third building. I was like, whoa, that's where Michael Myers lives. And I knew I couldn't, really go in there and check out the cats and everything. And then when I looked through the window, I could see through the window, there was a door, the front door of the apartment, and there was a window, and I could kind of see, his face and everything, like through the glass, Michael Myers from Halloween, but that was just like really bizarre, and yeah, so basically, like here's the sky right here, or way out here up high, here's the sky, but higher, 5,000 feet in the air. And then basically I started going lower and lower after I flew for a while, hand gliding with my hands. Then over here was the building, the apartment building, the apartment complex. And like I said, when I looked down, when I was 5,000 feet in the air, I looked down at my little bitty car. It was only about 4 inches, big, because I was so high. And like I say, there was like 5 little apartments, and that third one, I could see Michael Myers' face through the glass, and I knew I couldn't like stop there or anything, because he's a psycho. Okay, so anyway, after that, then and I'm forgetting a lot too, but anyway, after that, I go inside this building, and I don't know what the heck kind of building it was, but I went inside this building, and then I went inside this big bathroom. And I have conversation with this like older woman and a younger woman, and the younger woman was totally familiar to me, and that's when I sort of like take off, and me and her both go on another flying trip. But the older woman, she was standing around in the bathroom, and she had all these little Halloween decorations set up on the counter, by the sinks and stuff. She had all these little decorations, like it was a bunch of colorful things, like orange pumpkins, and there was a bunch of other colorful things too, like orange pumpkins, and there was some yellow and some black, and it was just a bunch of colorful little knick-knack things and Halloween things that she had. And it's like she was getting ready to give out some of the things if any kids came in there. And yeah, like I said, this whole experience was like totally freaking bizarre. And a lot of it, there's a lot of parts that I'm forgetting too, because lately, I don't know, Joel's been giving me these experiences that are kind of hard to remember. Okay, so yeah, so like I say, it was a bunch of and candles. There was a bunch of candles too, like I don't know, orange, yellow, black, and they were just covered, like the whole, there was like 4 or 5 sinks, the whole, counter, all those little like knick-knack things, Halloween knick-knack things, and it was all Halloween stuff. And then And then, so I started having conversation with this other girl, and she was familiar. And she was younger, and she was supposed to be like, I don't know, like a cousin or something. And then we eventually like go outside. And then she says, if you want to like hang glide, then, you know, like we could do it with these two little strings, or these two little ropes. They were like little ropes, like two big. They were like 3.5 feet. She had two 3.5 feet like white little ropes, and it had like what do you call that? Like zippers. It had like a zipper on each one of them, and that we were supposed to somehow. Like I said, I know I'm fucking forgetting a lot of this, but I remember all the flying stuff, and that was a blast. But a lot of it I'm kind of forgetting. But yeah, so and I kept thinking like, how are we supposed to hang glide with that? How are we supposed to get off the ground with two little ropes? And so but anyway, it happened. So so that's how we started hang gliding, was with those two little white ropes. And I know Joel was trying to copy off like you know, the zippers and stuff I have on my jackets and those strings or whatever. He was trying to copy off that. And so anyway, so then we were outside, and we were kind of like zipping the zippers up, you know. We were putting the zippers up the rope or whatever, and then we kind of started to you know, to take off the ground and fly off or whatever. And but anyway, that part was bizarre, because I couldn't understand how we supposed to get off the ground, you know, with those ropes and the zippers. And so the second part, you know, like when I started flying with her, well, that part kind of became fuzzy all of a sudden. But anyway, there was two. The first flying event was like a total blast, and then the second one with the ropes, that one was kind of bizarre. But I do remember like getting off the ground a little bit, but I don't remember going very high. And yeah, so we did fly around again that second time. I just don't remember too much of that part, but it was just freaking bizarre, man. And so I had some other experiences too, and that experience was this morning. But okay, some other ones I had. It was pretty bizarre. There was some bizarre shit too. But this was like a week or so ago, but I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Okay, so basically, this is like a recurring. Well, a lot of my experiences are recurring, but this was like, and like I say, it was like cloudy. I mean, because sometimes I do have experiences where it's sunny. I've had out of body experiences where it's like totally sunny. Well, I didn't talk about my experiences back in 2004 and stuff. I'll have to talk about that too. But yeah, in that scenario I had this morning, it was like cloudy, and a lot of times where Joel takes me or whatever, wherever he takes me, you know, could be artificial realities or whatever. But anyway, it's cloudy, you know. And so anyway, another experience I had was, and like I said, I've had experiences like this, recurrent experiences like this, but none of them are exact. You know what I mean? Like where I'll be walking around, feels like another dimension. This was like many years ago, and I go off into what do you call it? A strip mall type of thing, and I go into like there's like a swimming pool. There's like a you know, it's like a swimming pool, you know, facility where you can go in there and swim, and or lots of times I've had experiences like that where there's no swimming pool involved, but yeah, so in this scenario, there was a swimming pool up the street where Price Cutter is at, and oh yeah, and I breathed underwater too. But anyway, so, and like I said, this has happened time and time again, where it's like up the street right there by Price Cutter in that strip mall, or whatever you call it, that strip of businesses, and it was like a little gym, except I don't really remember seeing any gym equipment. It was just a small swimming pool. You know, so I went inside, and I eventually just kept jumping. I jumped off the high dive about 5 to 6 times into the water. It was such a blast. And the funny thing is, I was standing on the high dive, and the high dive was like 5 stacked up little bitty tiles. Like my feet were like trying to balance on these little 5-inch by 5-inch tiles. And I was just like trying to stand there, and I kept jumping off, and I jumped off about 5 to 6 times into the water. And I even floated all the way down to the bottom. Hey, get off. Down to the bottom. And I was just like, wow, you know, I'm breathing so good underwater. And I'm like, this is so much fun. And when I was underwater, I was not surprised that I could breathe, since I had been underwater many times before, and I breathed underwater many times before. You know, when the aliens took me underwater or whatever. Also, as I went underwater the first time, like I say, I jumped at least 5 to 6 times, boom, into the water. And one time, I was kind of stalled underwater because I went to the bottom, so I was just kind of stalled there on the bottom. And I was like, wow, I know why I can breathe so good. It's because I had been wearing those respirators. The aliens are funny. They got a sense of humor. But that was funny because that wouldn't have had anything to do with anything, you know what I mean? But anyway, it was a blast. And it's so much fun when you can breathe underwater. But, okay, so the same morning, I was having a hard time falling back to sleep. And then I fell asleep. This was in the front bedroom. And all of a sudden, I don't know what you call it, but I guess I was kind of like bilocating. Like I knew I could feel myself finally drifting off to sleep, so I knew I fell asleep finally. And I could see myself drift off to sleep in my bed, in the front bedroom. And then boom, all of a sudden I was at work in my cubicle. And I was doing the same thing. I was drifting off to sleep sitting in my chair. Then my boss walked by and she said, oh, you know, like wake up, you're drifting off to sleep. And I told her, I was like, no way, I'm not here at work. I told her, no way, I'm not here at work because I know I'm back in bed sleeping. And like I said, this out-of-body experience, so to speak, was very bizarre, but it was awesome. Like I totally saw myself and I knew I had drifted off to sleep in my bed, and so I couldn't understand why I was there at work all of a sudden in my cubicle, and I was drifting off to sleep in my cubicle. But that was a blast. And Joel was just copying off of that because I've had fallen asleep several times before, you know, 2, 3 o'clock. I don't get that way anymore, but I used to back in 2011, 12, 13, 2010, somewhere around there. And, but like I said, I don't get that way anymore. Well, I mean, except for like when I'm at home, because I always take naps about that time. But, so that was a blast. And like that first experience, you know, Joel was just putting all these bits and pieces together, you know, about Halloween and Michael Myers and the hang gliding and the hand gliding. It was a blast, man. Okay, so, okay, I gotta hurry up. But that experience was bizarre. I mean, most all of my experiences aren't really bizarre, you know? They're just normal experiences that I always have. But that was bizarre. Because, like, my boss actually walked by me and she saw me drifting off to sleep. And I was like, no, you know, there's no way I could be here. I'm back in my bed sleeping. But it was fun. Okay, so then I had this other experience. Okay, hold on. Still doing. Oh shit, this is gonna take forever. Well, maybe not. Okay. Oh, okay. This was kind of like, oh, and I've had a bunch of other experiences too, but some of the other ones are kind of personal. But anyway, so this was like a hotel scenario, which I sort of like was. I mean, I was like walking around this hotel forever, and there was there was pending romance, but it never happened. Well, a lot of times, believe you me, it happens, but I hate it when they do this shit and they never make it happen. And I'm sure Joel gave me this experience. Okay, but still, the aliens, woke up, I had a hard time to speak. What? Oh, Oh, okay, but still the aliens are still doing stuff sometimes. Like, they'll give you experiences like that, and they're still doing stuff to you. Like I don't know, in the bed, ethereally or physically or whatever. But still, the aliens are still doing stuff. Probably Joel. It was probably Joel. Because, like, it wasn't a sexual experience at all, but when I woke up, like, I still felt like I was aroused, Okay, so anyway, at one point, I went outside the hotel and it was getting dusk. Okay, yeah, but this whole scenario, it lasted a long time, and like I say, there was this other person walking around, and we kind of talked a little bit here and there, and then that person kind of was talking to this other person, and blah, 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 and there was supposed to be this, pending romance, but it never did happen. Okay, so anyway, at one point, okay, it was getting kind of dark and dusk outside, and at one point, I went outside the hotel, and I looked up, and there was this weird alien craft, like UFO ship, and the upper half was floating on top of it. I was like, weird. Then, when the top slowly came down to the lower part of the craft, like boom, over, let's see, when the top shut down, lower part of the craft. Yeah, when the lower part, when the upper part of the craft came slowly lowering down on the craft, boom, it closed up. The whole craft, closed up. And that was like to activate. That was like the activation. That was like to activate the other two plane jets or UFOs, whatever the hell they were, to lift off and shoot off in the sky. Yeah, if this was I can try to draw a picture, but this was just this weird looking craft, this multi-layered craft, and the whole top of it was floating. And then it came down, boom, and it snapped in place. And then over to the right was these two other, like, airplanes or jets or whatever they were. And they were getting ready to take off. And they also were in some kind of container. These two airplanes or jets or whatever, it's like they were sitting there aiming towards the sky. And they were getting ready to shoot off. And they were enclosed in some kind of container, and they were parallel to each other. And then the top, before they started to shoot off, as the other, the big craft I told you about, as the lid came down and closed basically on that big craft I told you about, the lids of the other two airplanes started to lift off of them. They came, slowly coming off of the tops of the other two jets or whatever. So that was a really weird experience. But and like I say, those other airplanes, they were like parallel to each other, and they were encased in some kind of round containers. And then, like I say, the lids the top started to lift off of them, because the other craft activated them when the top came down and shut, on that big craft. It activated the two other airplanes. And this was a long scenario. And another part of it, I was visiting a school, and oh yeah, then it went on to this other part, or maybe it was a separate OBEB or lucid dream, I don't know. And the other part of it, I went to visit the school, and for whatever reason, I went into this huge bathroom again, and it was totally freaking disgusting, and it actually smelled like shit. I could smell shit and everything in the bathroom. And that part was virtual reality. Well, the whole thing was. But, and there was a friend with me too. And it's like we were going to try to clean the bathroom. The aliens are always sticking me in these nasty ass, skanky ass bathrooms. Like when you go into Barnes & Nobles or Walmart, except in my scenario, it would be like 5,000 times more gross, Because the aliens, they know I'm a clean freak, and they know I can't stand public bathrooms, and so they stick me in these nasty ass bathrooms. But anyway, that was like bizarre with the UFO craft, and I can sort of try to draw it, but it was multi-layers. Like the first big old craft was multi-layers, and then the top was floating, and then it came down, bam, and it closed, and then it activated the two other jets or whatever they were to shoot up in the air. And like I say, they had like round lids on them, and the lids started to come off, as the other UFO shut, after the top of it shut. But that was really bizarre. And, okay, and this other experience. Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. Okay, so this other experience is I was walking around my apartment complex on the 3rd floor. I could have been on the 4th floor, but I was up pretty high, either 3rd level or 4th level. And, okay, came to discuss. Okay, I was walking around, wait, hold on. Finally left the apartment. It seemed like I was walking around, it was my apartment complex, basically, but there was a friend that came in and my sister. And so for a long time, this experience lasted a long time too, but I'm just trying to shorten it up. But I did have a long conversation, like with my sister and with the friend that was walking around. And then all of a sudden a real estate agent came in my apartment to discuss some things. And like I say, I had that was my roommate, by the way. Yeah, I had a roommate, but my sister was there too. And like I said, we were having conversations and stuff, but the real estate agent came in, after I started talking with my sister and the real estate agent. The aliens copied all of this because I used to live on a 3rd floor apartment in Austin, and my sister did stay with me one time. But anyway, when I finally left the apartment by myself. Wait, hold on. Very dark. Oh yeah. So anyway, so after we had this long drawn out scenario in my apartment, and I started having conversation and doing stuff, just doing boring stuff, walking around and discussing stuff with my sister and the roommate, I left out of the apartment complex, and the walkways was all concrete, and that's how it was too in real life at my old apartment complex. The whole walkways were concrete, and this part was funny, but it was okay, very dark concrete. Yeah, the whole walkways. It was pitch black. I'm like, wow, I can't even see anything. I just started walking along, and basically I was trying to get down to my car, but the walkways. There was no lights, and I'm thinking, why don't they light up this walkway, man? But it was pitch black. I was walking along, but I was able to see 2 cats. Let's see, 2 black and white cats. There was 2 black and white cats. One of them was, when I looked over to the left, over the balcony, way down, that was the office, and I saw 1 black and white cat lingering around that office. And then there was one up on the walkway, a black and white cat. And then finally, I left the apartment by myself in my car. And I was all of a sudden was on Highway 65, basically. In the scenario, it would have been equivalent to Highway 65 going north. Except of course, this, scenario felt gnarly because it feels like you're in a different dimension. It feels nothing like 3rd dimension. And the highway, it was much wider. Like all the lanes were super wide. In the scenario, the roads were much bigger and wider. And, okay, so this part's bizarre because the aliens have done this time and time again. It's probably Joel, but they give you really scary scenarios to make you think you're going to, like you're about to die, They give you very scary scenarios where you think you're going to die, you know what I mean? But, so anyway, okay, so, wait, where am I at? Okay, so all of a sudden, I looked up in the sky, and there were 2 commercial airplanes in single formation, one behind the other, coming from the left. They were coming from the left, but they were going right, and they were rather low. To the right of the planes, there was another weird-looking alien spacecraft, and I can draw that one too. Because that one was also like multi-layered. It didn't look like anything that could be floating in the sky. And I was like, wow, that can't be an alien spacecraft because I know... This part was weird because the alien, Joel made me think that I wasn't dreaming. So I was like, wow, that can't be an alien spacecraft because I know I'm not dreaming. I didn't think I was in a dream in this part of the scenario. And it was nothing like a plane, and it didn't even look like something that would be floating or flying. I mean, it didn't even really look like a alien UFO or anything like that. It just looked like some weird, it was just some weird object looking thing, but the only way I know how to describe it would be an alien spacecraft, even though it didn't really look like anything that could fly or float. Okay, so it was nothing like a plane and didn't even look like something that would be floating or flying. And I can try to draw it later. Then all of a sudden, boom! The plane closest to it, you know, the one that was right behind it, all three of them were like, you know, it appeared they were kind of going to the right. And, but the plane that was behind the commercial airplane that was behind that UFO, weird spacecraft, it was closest to it, the one closest to it, it hit it. I mean, it just, boom, it hit it. It collided with the craft, and it exploded. It just, bam, exploded. And I saw all this, by the way. This was all very vivid. It exploded, I mean, into red, orange, freaking fire. It exploded. I watched it explode right in front of my eyes, right as I drove almost right under the craft. And both planes, as I looked, as I started to drive right under the craft, I looked up and both planes, wait, hold the fuck on. Okay, so, but anyway, I started to drive like right under both airplanes and the craft. And as it exploded, it literally was almost just right on top of me, except it was much higher, of course. And I saw the explosion and everything. And both planes, as I drove right on both. But anyway, yeah. So when the craft exploded, I was almost directly right under both airplanes plus the craft. And I just kind of stalled. I was stunned. And I was like, you know, I don't know. I was stalled. I was in shock or whatever. And then it took me several seconds to realize, like, oh my God, that debris is going to come down on my car and hit the road. And I didn't realize that at first, though, because I was just like dumbfounded or whatever. Then, boom, I hurried and turned my car around on the highway, and I looked back and I saw tons of debris hitting the road from the craft. So as I turned around, I hurried up and drove, you know, backwards, and then I looked back, and all this debris was like hitting the road. But that was insane, and the alien Joel could have copied that from a long time ago when like we saw a semi truck like roll over in front of us, so he could have kind of put all that together or whatever. But yeah, it was crazy. That was crazy insane, but it was fun. Okay, let me see this other one. I was like, what? Looking for a bike and a soul. Wait, I don't remember this one. I wrote it down. Okay, hold on. Where is this? Oh, yeah, I would not remember this one if I didn't write it down. None of these I would have remembered if I didn't write them down. Okay, well, I don't know if I have any time left. Okay, okay, so anyway, this other scenario I was having, or this other scenario this morning on October 19th, I was having a long drawn-out scenario, out-of-body experience, OBE, VR, lucid dream. I was at my mom's hanging out in the garage, and with my mom, dad, sister, and brother. My mom told my uncle, as we were walking around the garage having conversation and stuff, my mom told me that my uncle David was in town, and that he was, you know, up the street at my other uncle's white house up the street, helping out stray cats to get them adopted out. My mom wanted me to go visit and see the cats and to see him. Well, then all of a sudden there was a familiar woman in the scenario walking around, you know, my dad's garage basically. She was a cousin or something, and she borrowed my silver bike and sold my other bike, my newer bike, my Mirax Finesse bike. I was like, what the heck? Like in the scenario, like I was looking where my bikes should have been, and they both were gone. Because she stole one of them basically. Well, she borrowed one of them, never gave it back, and then she and all of this was very vivid too. And she basically sold my other one. I was like, what the heck? I was looking for my bikes in the garage, and when I realized she got rid of them, you know, I saw the images in my head of the silver mongoose bike and my newish greenish Marax finesse bike. So I knew I wouldn't be able to ride up the street to go see my uncle because I needed transportation to get there, you know, for this scenario. In real life, I could have just walked up there. So then my dad had gotten my sister's very old reddish 12-speed bicycle from on top of the attic, and it's still up there, by the way, and brought it down to the garage and set it near me. A big part of the scenario was me looking at my sister's old bike and trying to fix it so I could ride up to my uncle's. It was so vivid. The bike was beyond old looking because this bike is like 40 years old, or maybe 35 years old. The bike was beyond old looking, and when I touched the bike pedals with my foot, they both fell off onto the floor, and they were super brittle. The pedals were like metal rods, like 7 inches long and a half-inch thick. All of this was very vivid and very virtual reality. And okay, so anyway, it fell off into. Okay, so anyway, as I when I touched the bike pedals with my foot, they both fell off onto the floor. They were super brittle. The pedals were long metal rods, like 7 inches long and a half-inch thick. When I started to inspect the bike, I saw so much dirty, greasy oil in a lot of the crevices of the bike parts. It was very vivid. This part was the most vivid of all the experience when I was sitting there tampering, trying to fix her damn bike for you know, hours and hours. After that, after I saw how gross and dirty the bike was, you know, oily and greasy, after that, I actually took off a part of the bike which was like 7 inches long, 4 inches wide. And it was all gross and dirty and greasy. The funny thing is that this was more like a car part. It was more like a car engine part. So this part was kind of funny because there's no way a part like that would be on a 10-speed, like well, it was probably more like a, you know, 12-speed bicycle. It was like a 12-speed bicycle. It was a man's bike. It was a 10-speed, but like 12-speed. And, but anyway, that part was like an engine car part. And, I determined that I won't ever be able to ride my sister's old bike. I determined that it was not fixable. And, oh yeah, and then I had those 2 other OBE VR lucid dreams, but those were long romance scenarios that never happened. Man, looked like, oh yeah, and then there was this other, oh yeah, oh my god, this one was fun too, but, this was a long, drawn-out scenario too, and it kind of had some sexual undertones in it, or whatever. But I had this, I watched the Squid Game a few weeks ago, or whatever, and this was just a couple mornings ago. I had the Squid Game scenario. So basically, I was in this big, fancy RV with this man who looked, well, actually, we were in this big warehouse-looking thing, and he had this big, fancy RV sitting there, and the man looked like my old boss from 2004. He got me finally to go, this scenario lasted a long time too. He got me to go in it, then he finally took off with me, and I ended up in this warehouse, another warehouse type of building. And like, I was just like, I wasn't sure if I could trust him. And because I knew, like, I don't know, I didn't know where he was taking me, and I just didn't know if I could trust him. And so when I got to the other warehouse, some more men and women showed up, and some men and women did die, and I knew I wasn't going to die, but I knew some of those men and women did die. But it wasn't shown to me like how they died. I knew that they wanted something from me and that I wasn't going to die or whatever. But it was a lot longer than that, but it was kind of fun though. But that one was kind of bizarre too. And I mean, like I said, all of these experiences felt like you're totally in another dimension. It's so virtual reality. And I wasn't going to die. Okay, but okay, and then this. Okay, hold on. Sarah Hotel District. Yeah, and then I had this other one. It was kind of fun. Oh. Okay, let's see. Okay, so basically I had this scenario with my friend Angie, who's dead in real life, and E T, and my Uncle David. I wasn't really thinking about him in a long time, but see, I have a picture of him right there. And so I guess in a way I was thinking of him not too long ago. So that's kind of funny they put my Uncle David in the scenario. He died, over 20 years ago. So anyway, I had this experience with me and my friend Angie and her friend Elsa, Teresa, E.T. We always called her E.T. We were hanging out at a motel for a long time. This was more like a motel. That other one was probably more like a hotel, but this one is more like a crappier motel. We were hanging at a motel for a long time, talking, walking around, etc., for hours and hours. Eventually, we got hungry, and we got into the elevator, and I drove across the street to a familiar place called something like Junipers or something like that. It was a popular local, local restaurant dive. Like a mom and pop, restaurant. Like a breakfast type of restaurant, or lunch type of restaurant. In the hotel, we did have conversation, and we talked about our animals. When I saw the restaurant, I knew that they were trying to copy off of Waffle House or Ziggy's. I don't know what town I was supposed to be in, but when I saw that restaurant, Junipers, I knew they were trying to copy off of Waffle House or Ziggy's or something. And, okay, hold on. Okay, so finally we sat down and everything, and the female waitress came walking up to us, and she gave us she gave us a plate full of a big scoop of white rice, which was sitting on the right side of the plate. And the left side of the plate, it was something else I was allergic to. I can't remember what it was. It was shit, see, I should be able to remember that, but I can't. But on the right side of the plate was a big scoop of white rice, and the left side was like lettuce or something, but I don't know if I'm allergic to lettuce or not, but I can't remember exactly what that was. And I knew I couldn't eat that plate of food because I knew I was allergic, and I couldn't eat it. Well, E T and Angie ate it, and then they got up and left. I got up too and left, and didn't realize the waitress was going to keep on bringing us several more meals. Well, the second meal that she put on the table was beef, was on the right side of the plate, and a potato on the left side. And I was like, wow, I can eat this. So I started picking out on it, and it tasted so delicious too. Most of my scenarios now, I'm picking out and eating and stuff, and it's really fun. And so I hurried and told Angie. I got up and I hurried and got Angie. I told him hey, and E.T., I hurried, got up from the table, and I told Angie and E.T. to get back here since I was not done eating.